It's the DJ DNA podcast. I'm DJ DNA, and this is episode 3. We got DJ Professor Lee in the building. My dad. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up with you? What's up with everybody? It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Always, anything that I'm doing streaming, I'm always bringing you in because it's like a huge part of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know it. You were saying before when we were trying to get everything all worked out, I mean, if it wasn't because of me, you wouldn't be the DNA.
Exactly. So episode 3, you probably should have been episode 2. I don't know why I didn't think of having you on right after the Who is DNA podcast.
Yeah, what were you thinking? What was up with that, man?
I don't know. It's I don't know, but let's jump right in, right? People that follow me, they know the story, how I became DJ DNA, because I talk about it in my live, and I also had the episode. So people who are just finding out who I am, they're learning. But in that episode, I didn't talk about everything. I wanted to keep some of the juicy stuff for when you were on. So I talked about in that first episode, you guys go check it out. It's Who is DJ DNA. But in that first episode, I talk about my childhood and not knowing who my dad was, and getting to a point where I took an Ancestry DNA test and the results came back, and I talked about me sending you a message. But I didn't talk. It's hard for me to talk about the things that went on your side of it. Like, we talk about it, I know, but let's talk about your side. Like, what was it like receiving a message from me in Ancestry? Like, what was going through your head when you seen that message, and how did you receive that message?
The one word is shock. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so there was a lot of I don't know what's the word I want to use. There was a lot of freewheeling, free spirit. So we had lots of friends. We did whatever we wanted to do. We were always into experimenting and whatnot. And so I think anybody who went through the 70s, it was a lot of it was a blur for us. So I'm sitting down I think I was sitting out on the porch, and your mom and we've been friends since we were junior high school. Good friends. There was a whole group of us, and so we'd been on Facebook for a long time. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm married, and oh yeah, it's good. Oh, where are you living now? Oh yeah, hey, how's the weather? Oh, you're gonna evacuate during the hurricane? Oh yeah, where are you headed? Yeah, we did all that, just conversational stuff over the years. And then one day, this particular day, she wrote me a message, and she said, "Hey, remember me telling you I have sons, right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Did I tell you? But one of my sons is named Pierre." I says, "No, no, no. He's a good boy." And I said, "Oh, okay. He's a good boy. Yeah, I'm so proud of him." And I said, "Oh, okay, then, yeah, good. That's good. That's good." He said, he has 2 girls." I said, "No kidding. Really? Get out of town. I have two girls too." He says, "Wow." She said, That's very interesting." She said, his wife and his kids brought him a DNA test from this Ancestry.com. Are you familiar with it? I said, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. He did that. Everybody should do that. I did that with my brother. I did that." And she said, "Well, I don't know anything about this stuff, and could be all bogus and all fake." She said, "But it came back, and it's that you could be his father." Just like that. But she didn't miss a beat. She said, "Listen, he's not asking for anything. He doesn't want to disrupt your life. He just, he's always wondered, who his dad was, and not always, but I mean, he more recently has been wondering, and he's been searching, and he got this, and he reached out to you, and excuse me, he hadn't heard back from you, so I'm reaching out on his behalf."
So at what point did you decide to join Ancestry, and what made you want to join Ancestry?
Probably 5 years before this, my brother Ron and I, we were talking about our ancestral history on my on my father's side of the family, because one of my cousins had done a not an ancestry, but did a genealogical search on my mother's side of the family, and had found the names of the first 2 slaves on my mother's side of the family that had gotten married, and actually published a little booklet with all of that in it. And I don't know if it's been updated since. I think I got this like in the late 70s, maybe early 80s or something like that. And but we didn't have any history on my father's side, so we both joined Ancestry and just started doing research. And then we saw that you could get more detailed information by submitting a DNA test, which you
Right.
probably talked about in your last show, your last podcast.
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. Like I feel super lucky with the results that I got from Ancestry, because it doesn't always turn out this way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's people are finding that their father is not their father. They were just doing it to see where they were from, and then the results are coming back and they're finding out that they're not even their dad's child.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, you're right. Sometimes people do the searches because they suspect that what they've been told is not true. You know?
Right. And in our case, it actually brought family together, and I'm super blessed for that.
In a big time way.
And on the other part of it, with you doing Ancestry, being able to find the first 2 slaves is huge.
Yeah.
There's so much story lost when it comes to genealogy for Black people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say one other quick thing about, people searching, because I know your listeners will want to know, well, should I do it? Or maybe people are afraid to do it because they don't know what they'll find. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the other side of it is sometimes history is kept secret for some very good reasons on the part of the people who are keeping it secret.
Yes.
Meaning, there are things that they really don't want to talk about, or they're trying to forget.
They're
or whatever.
painful for good
Yeah.
and bad. I mean, not good and bad. Not good.
Yeah. But here's something, I don't know if I told you this, but when you start doing the ancestry searches, you begin to piece together things about your family history that you might have even been told, but it wasn't important to you at the time, and so you kind of dismissed it.
Yes.
Like I found out that my the people who raised me, the people who I thought were my grandparents, were not really my grandparents. They were the lady who I thought was my grandmother was actually my aunt.
A lot of that happened back in the day.
Was actually my father's aunt, or my
Okay.
great aunt. So it turns out his mother had died, and my father was taken in by his aunt and her husband, who didn't have any children, and they just took on the name. I don't even know that they went through a legal adoption process. I think
Right.
they just started calling the kids, "This is your last name now."
You allow it now.
That's it. And so that led me down another rabbit hole. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on about the
Right.
different rabbit holes I went down before I found that piece of information. But I did finally find my father's real mother's name, and found how she died, where she died. And still some mystery there, though. Still some
Right.
mystery.
We got to I want to be involved in that part a lot more.
Yeah.
We've been so caught up on all the stuff that we've lost, or time lost, you know what I mean? Been caught up with our immediate family, me meeting all my cousins and my aunts and uncles. We haven't spent too much time going over the stuff that you researched before we ended up linking
Yeah.
up. We got to do more of that for sure.
Yeah, and I'll say something too for people who are listening and maybe have been curious about this whole process. I mean, it's worth it to do the research, because, like I said before, you'll find things that, wow, I didn't even know this. Like, for example, there are a lot of the former slaves actually wrote books and memos and things like that that just were never published anywhere where you would see it.
You were
So-
getting it. You were literally getting punished for learning how to read and write.
Yeah, that's right. But it turned out the Lowry side of the family, they had a long history of being in the church and ministers and one of them had actually written a book that you can actually go and download. It's free. You can download it from the Library of Congress. It's called Life on the Plantation.
Fire.
Yeah, actually, and in that little book, it goes all the way back and talks about the names of the plantation, the people who got married, and how a man and a woman from different plantations got together, and they had a big celebration, and they had a church, and they had a school, that whole thing. So
That's really dope. We definitely got to dive into that. One thing that I didn't mention, or I did mention it, but I didn't talk about it very much, was that we were both DJs.
yep.
That's
Yeah.
probably the biggest similarity that we both have, right?
I mean, it was, yes, I would say that is probably one of the most odd similarities. I mean, because if you think about it, what are the odds of that? Right?
That's how you
But
know it's real, though.
well, I know, but it gets even stranger than that, because my first, I mean, I started DJing in middle school. I was like part of the AV team, and somebody, I don't know whether it was the coach or somebody, said, "Hey, you DJ at the middle school." What they called DJing basically was turntables, switching records, and all that.
Right. This has got to be 70s, 60s, or 70s.
60s, like, yeah, 60s. We're talking 60s.
Okay.
You know,
Way
you had,
before
like,
Cool Herc.
Yeah, you had little 45s, and you had the little thing you had to put in the center, and you had two turntables, and you'd have to lift the thing up, put it on, you have to change the needle, all that stuff, right? But somebody asked me to help DJ the Friday night dance for the high school at the local YMCA in Middletown. So
Right. So that
does
gets
that
into
sound familiar to you?
Yeah, it does, because I started my DJ teaching kids how to DJ in the Y, at the Y, for sure. For
I
sure.
mean,
Yeah. Big shout to the Middlesex YMCA, man.
yeah, bringing families together
Without even knowing it.
without even knowing it. Yeah, that's
Okay, so you got asked to DJ that dance. Like, what was going on in your life that they would even ask you? Like, how did you get into DJing? Did you see someone DJing? Had you just controlled the music at a party before and liked it? Or like, how did you get there?
I'm thinking back. I'm sure it was, my mom used to send us to the YMCA because we didn't live too far from there. And so somehow somebody must have mentioned that, yeah, Lee, he does DJing at the middle school for the dances. And it wasn't just me. I mean, there were other people who would do it. And basically, I had a music library, so everybody loved my music because I was into the latest music, and would listen to the radio and buy the latest music. And because it was back in the day when you had record stores, you could go and you could buy the latest
Record
45.
Express on Main Street was popping.
Yeah, what they were playing on the radio was the stuff that people were actually listening and dancing to. So we didn't even call it DJing because I don't even think DJ was a thing. I don't even know what we were called.
It definitely was a thing because I mean, I think it was probably it was called a jockey, like it was a
maybe disc jockey.
It was a disc jockey because there was
called.
DJs on the radio, right?
You're right. There was
What were
DJs
they they calling the DJs? The radio DJs back then.
Right. But it wasn't. But there was no scratching. There was
No.
There was really no mixing. There was no blending. There was none of that stuff. It was just you had to have a little bit of a personality because, first of all, you had to have a good sense of what music people wanted to listen to. That was important.
Right.
And you had to have a good sense of how to do the rotations of the music, so people got to do the latest dance. Mashed potatoes was a big thing back then, man.
Oh my goodness. That's my favorite food. So you're making me hungry. I'm just saying.
The mashed potatoes, we had to swim, we had to shimmy, we had to twist. We had all of those dances. And so, you had to space them out. So you had to know how to do that. And also they had this thing. I don't know if you ever went to high school dances. They had, all right, it's girls' choice. Girls' choice. And then the girls would come across and pick the guy they wanted to dance with. That's how that worked. And then sometimes it was boys' choice, boys' choice. And then the boys would do the same thing. So
go pick a girl to dance with.
pick a girl and and the girl had to dance with you, whether she wanted to or not. Boys had to dance with the girl.
Everybody was trying to go get the finest girl too.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of relationships started, because people would always rush to get to the same girls or same boys all the time. And
that's so funny.
yeah, that's how that's. But I did that. I remember doing that. That was my first taste of what it was like to be a DJ. So I had that memory in my head, because the Friday night dances was held downstairs in like they had like an activity room where they had pool tables, ping pong tables, and we had to move everything out.
Now, is this at the Y or the middle school?
No, this is at the YMCA.
At the YMCA.
And they had, they had a bar down there. It was not really a bar. It was like a counter, and they would bring in the soda. So they had like the soda fountain, so I could make sodas for people. And I had to take a ride with the organizer, whoever it was at the time, and we'd have to pick up the big cans of, compressed carbonated soda water from the Coca-Cola company. Remember the Coca-Cola company down on
I think I was a twinkle in your eye, bruh. I think I was a twinkle.
But yeah, we did all of that stuff. So I had good memories of all of that. But once I stopped doing that, I didn't DJ again until I was grown, man. I was like, I had kids and was working and all that kind of stuff. But I never lost the love of music, and I never lost my curiosity about how to make this all work,
So that actually is very interesting. Like, you were talking about DJing in the very beginning, when there was no scratching and there was really no mixing. There wasn't even a mixer for that at the time. That wouldn't come till years later. The crossfader and all that stuff wouldn't come till years later. But the stuff that you were talking about are the basics that DJs are still learning to these days. To this day, there are DJs out there that start DJing and they just want to scratch. Yeah. You know what I mean? We got to get back to what the people want to hear, right? Yeah. I think that's one of the toughest things that some of the new DJs that I meet, I have to tell them, like, the music you like isn't the music that the general public likes. Not, sometimes it is, sometimes it is, but you're gonna have to play songs that you normally wouldn't play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, if you've signed up to be a DJ, you're gonna have to play certain songs over and over and over again. And I know a lot of DJs, they struggle with that because they get tired of hearing the electric slide, for example.
So I wanted to ask too, like, how did you become DJ Professor Lee? Because I know you said that you hadn't DJed in a minute. So did you adapt that name as you were older when you got back? Or like, how did you become DJ Professor Lee?
Well, I was known as the professor in high school because I wore glasses, and I had, back then they didn't have stylish glasses. So the glasses I wore were very thick, and I was always well-spoken. And so my nickname became the professor. So even on the basketball team, yearbooks, I was the professor. That was kind of like my nickname.
Got you.
It had nothing to do with DJing, had nothing to do with martial arts, had nothing to do with anything like that. And then later in high school, I discovered martial arts, and so I started playing around with martial arts. Eventually, I got my master status, and then I actually earned a professor status in the martial arts. So I became, Professor Lee in the martial arts. So when I started my podcast, I came up with the TTT radio network, went through that whole idea, like, what should it be called? What do I want to do? Wanted to create something that was as flexible as possible. And then got into the radio thing. I discovered that, oh, wow, you can actually do radio. So I did. Oh, let me back up. Yes. So I was thinking of that. And then I'm trying to remember what happened. Oh, let me back way, 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 way up. Okay. So even before all the podcasting, we would get invited to go to a picnic or a party, and people would remember that I had always had good music. Hey, can you bring some music? So I would have to load up an iPod, and you couldn't load up your phone. You'd load up your iPod, and back in the day, you'd bring your 8-track player, or you'd bring your CD player. Right. I had all that kind of stuff. Your boombox. I'm the guy who would show up with the boombox and the CDs and
You
all
were the
that
guy.
stuff.
You was the plug for the music, regardless of how you was gonna play the
Regardless.
music.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was known as the guy who had the good music and the good sound system, but I wasn't DJing.
You were just playing music.
I was just playing music, and people would come over to the house to visit. I always had good music, and I always knew how to set the mood for it, like have certain music in the background. And then when they were ready they finished eating, they wanted to dance. I always had the latest music and good music. And so I don't know what happened, what made me think of getting into DJing again. I mean, professional DJing, but I got a thought in my head, why don't I give it a try? Oh, I know what got me into it. See, I'm glad you're asking me these questions. I haven't thought about these things in years. My wife and we got involved in dancing, and they had DJs. And I thought, man, I didn't watch the DJs. The DJs didn't have any particular skill set that they had to worry about. You just had to have good music, the same stuff I'd been doing all along.
Right.
And I said, man, I could do that. I have all that music. All I need is a sound system. And nobody was actually hiring DJs or anything like that. So I decided, you know what? Let me see if I could DJ for something. So I bought some speakers, cheap speakers.
Powered speakers at the time, or
They were powered. Yeah.
did you have to do the amp with the
No. The powered speakers were in. I mean, we're talking really cheap. On Amazon, I found something that was, you could buy, I don't know, 2 powered speakers for like $50 or something.
That's
like
crazy.
That.
That's crazy to me, because powered speakers were super expensive when they came out.
No, these were probably made overseas someplace.
You got Temu speakers before Temu.
Yeah, the Temu probably got their idea from these people. So, anyways, I booked. Just how you are when you're trying to create your podcasts and your radio channels and radio stations. I started doing the research. I started like, what do people do? What do they ask? What are the questions? What are the mistakes they make? How do you make sure that blah blah blah? And I joined a couple of forums and learned what DJs were talking about. So I developed the lingo. So I knew pretty much what to look for after a while. I knew I didn't have really good equipment, but I also wasn't working either. So after I got my first gig.
So you said you weren't working because you were already retired?
No. I mean, I wasn't working as a DJ, meaning I wasn't earning. In other words, it was hard to justify spending money on more expensive gear when you didn't.
Yeah, it's a hobby.
It's a hobby. It wasn't even a hobby. It was like just something to sink money into,
It was a concept.
Yep. It was a concept. Exactly right. So finally I did get a gig. It was a 4th of July party. Actually, I remember 4th of July party. I had cheap speakers. I had cheap microphone. I had a big old. That didn't even have a good. I didn't even have a good controller. I basically had a Newmark controller, which is I actually still have it. That you could plug your. You had to plug in. It wasn't even USB. You had to run your audio from the mic, from the speaker out into the mixer.
Oh, that's wild. That's different.
Yeah. I have pictures of that setup. I use that setup for years, and it worked fine because it had a soundboard inside the mixer. So no matter what, you could be at low volume and it was going to output it whatever you need.
Right. And you just needed to go from one side to the other. So
yeah, I wasn't mixing or anything like that.
So
but, that went well.
So you mentioned, this is actually something I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you mentioned it because you talked about going to the Latin events. You talked about going to these Latin events and seeing people DJing. How did you get into dancing and liking and DJing Latin music?
Well, we were fortunate that when we started dancing, we started with more of the swing, like I said before, swing and jitterbug stuff. And a lot of the people we danced with were dancing all kinds of dances, disco, hustle, waltz, ballroom, all of that stuff. And one night somebody came in and said, hey, we're all going to go over to this local Latin club, and they have a lesson before you can dance. Why don't you come and go? The lesson's going to be salsa. Why don't you come? So we went. We liked it. We liked the music. We liked the vibe. It was different than being in a dance hall, dance studio, because you were out, people were drinking. It was like more natural. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we ended up going back, taking more lessons. We started making friends. Everybody was very friendly. We got to know some of the instructors. We got to know the DJ. I became good deep friends with a couple of the DJs, and one thing led to another, and that's the rest is history.
Yo, I do want to say in the first episode that I did on this podcast, I talked about how it was just me, you, and one of your friends who was DJing, and I just want to give him a shout out while we're here. Big shout out to DJ Ray, because he's been with us from the beginning, holding it down, and we literally created Sabor Latino for him.
Yeah.
So big shout out to DJ Ray. Make sure you guys check out Sabor Latino every day, but he's on Sundays.
He's on Sundays. Yeah.
How are you with trending topics? Are you familiar with what's going on with Diddy?
You know, I've been following it only because of the climate we're in. I've been purposefully not following the news as closely as I normally do.
Is it because of the politics stuff, or?
Yeah, and not so much that I'm against politics. Is and knowing what's going, because everybody should know more about politics, because your vote does count. But I always intend to vote, but I also know that the only thing I can do is vote. So I try not to listen to the things that don't inform me. Only the things, I try to listen to the things that inform me, regardless of what side they're coming from, so I can make an informed choice when I go to the voting booth. So as far as some of the other, for that reason, I haven't been turning the TV on as much. I haven't been going to the social media and reading what's been happening, but you can't escape it. So
right. But right now, it seems like we can't escape what's going on with Diddy.
You can't escape it. I've been seeing it. I knew you and I might talk about it a little bit, so I did go and look up a little bit more of it, because you had told me a little bit that kind of shocked me. And
so tell me what you know about what's going on right now.
Well, I know that what he ended up getting indicted on had been going on for a long time, which is probably the most shocking of all of this, is that people knew some of this stuff was going on. There had been reports about some of this stuff. And I guess maybe because he had so much money and such influence, nobody took him up on it. And nobody took seriously the women particularly, who had been assaulted by him, took it seriously. And so it continued on until it got to a point where somebody finally listened.
Right. So I'm actually glad that video with Cassie. Did you see the video where he attacked his ex-girlfriend?
The thing is, that's one of the ones I had seen that back in wasn't that 2016?
Yeah.
I had already seen that, so I'm surprised that
it took this long.
Yeah,
But, maybe it's because they waited for him to buy his 1,000th bottle of baby oil.
Oh no, you didn't just say that. Maybe
I'm sorry.
You mean he was waiting on the back order, so they had to wait till the check cleared or something?
Yes. So for those of you guys that don't know, if you're living under a rock somehow and you don't know what's going on with Diddy, he's been arrested for things like racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation of prostitution. So
gun possession,
drug possession. Where he find GHB?
He didn't find anything. He had people working for him.
Man, I've yet to come across GHB.
I think, it said, if you read the indictment, you can actually, for those people, again, who may or may not be up on this stuff, because I wanted to get it from the source. I didn't want to get it from a
post or something like that. They actually, it's public and from public knowledge, the whole indictment. You can read through the whole thing, right?
It's not long. It's like 9 pages, and it's pretty straightforward. It tells exactly. They even have pictures of the AK, whatever it is he had, the guns he had, and they've got witnesses. I mean, they went back and have testimony from witnesses that he hadn't talked to in years.
The indictment goes back to 2008, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they got quite a bit of information.
But stuff, some stuff does confuse me though about all of that. Like, and I've been trying to do a little bit of research on it. Like, when did he get the keys to the city in New York City? When did that happen? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date, but I remember it happening. They took it from him too, right?
I know they did take it from him.
They said you can't get in here.
Yeah. And then also the other thing I was looking up is like TD Jakes got messed up in this,
There's
the
a
minister.
now I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this here, but I hope he doesn't end up dead or killing himself. I know
Yeah.
that sounds crazy, but
Well, I
it
know.
wouldn't. I feel like it wouldn't surprise me.
It's yeah, I agree with you. But when you got a lot of these big name people involved in stuff, anything can happen.
Man, I don't want to put anybody's name out there, celebrities, because I don't freaking really know. But
Yeah.
there's a bunch of people who may or may not be involved, who may have been in a part of these freak offs that they were talking about.
Yeah.
And I am curious because I'm mad nosy, so I'm really curious to see who actually is involved. You know what I mean? I feel like this is part 2 of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Right? Because,
Yeah.
when he went to jail, we're like, ooh, we about to find out some juicy stuff.
Right.
And then what happens?
Yeah, exactly.
He's not alive anymore. So
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I heard the couple of names, and of course, the people like I mentioned, the Reverend Jakes, he denied it, and he's come
I heard
out very
Oprah.
strongly. Huh?
Did you hear Oprah?
No.
No, listen, do your research. I don't know, but like I said, we're going based off of posts, right? Because
I don't.
until it comes out in court and people are getting charged, we don't really know. But anyway,
I'll tell you, just a little tip for everybody. I mean, when I hear something sensational like what you just said, for example, it could be, if that stuff is true, then it should be out there easy enough for you to find, right? So when I Google stuff, I Google and I don't just go to one source. I go to
right,
multiple sources. And I go to sources where I know these sources
are
put
credible.
what they put online in print. To me, that's the standard. If it's in print, that means it's out there for the whole world to see. And you can't just go back and say, oh, no, I didn't say that, or take the video down or whatever it is. You can't take the newspaper or the magazine back. It is out there.
So another name, well, they say Oprah had, she's been involved with the Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and now Puffy. I heard the name Ashton Kutcher. There's a lot of stuff. Who knows? We're gonna find out. I hope we find out.
Well, I will say this much, that all doesn't surprise me in the sense that a lot of these celebrities travel in the same circles. So it's possible that someone like, Diddy, he knew that he needed to put himself in certain circles. Like, it wouldn't surprise me that he knows all of these people because they probably all interviewed him,
There's a
at some
bunch of sketchy videos out there now, knowing what we know now and in seeing interviews of certain people.
Yeah.
Like, man, I
know.
wonder if
It's
this
crazy.
has something to do with it, right?
It's crazy. It's almost like a nightmare kind of stuff, So
Now,
anyway.
are you familiar? Do you know who Shannon Sharp is?
I've heard the name. I know he's involved in sports somehow. So
Yeah. So he's a Hall of Fame tight end. He's been, I don't know what year he retired, but he was in the league forever. Like I said, he's Hall of Fame tight end for the Broncos and the Ravens. But he accidentally went live on Instagram, while he was having sex.
oh boy.
And the audio was there.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But what I think is funny is if you watch the podcast, he does ad reads. He would do ad reads, right? One of the ad reads he has for I think it's called I'm gonna call it dick pills. I don't know what else to call it. Male enhanced. I'm gonna call it dick pills. So
Okay.
I think it's called Roast Spark. I watched his podcast, right? It's interesting. He has very interesting guests. And I noticed it. I'm like, okay, whatever, while I'm noticing it. But then he goes live on IG while having sex, and they address it on his other podcast with Ocho Cinco. It's called Nightcap. And he has an ad read for Rose Sparks during there. He's like, listen, man, I was on this. He's promoting, so he's taking it to promote even more, which I think is genius, honestly.
I mean, I was looking, I was just scanning over here to see if I could find some stuff because it sounds pretty sensational. But yeah, everything that you say is true stuff. And I did see when I Googled his name, it did bring up the advertising for
Rose Sparks.
The male enhancement and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is, that's a big, you know, people will laugh about all this stuff like, oh, how could he do that? That's horrible. But you think about how many times you've butt dialed somebody, you know what I mean?
For sure.
And if if you were using an app and you got called and they're like, oh no, I'll be right there in a second. And then you put it down or you stuck it in your pocket. I mean, you could hit the record button on something.
No, it's happened to all of us.
I mean, I've had people butt dial me and I'm saying hello and I can hear them talking in the background of somebody.
Talking about you.
Unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. But I can see how it could happen.
It's funny too because there are people out there saying that he was gay. Oh. So there's people out there. Those same people are saying, "Hey, man, you didn't have to do that for us to let us know that you weren't gay, right?" But he's like, "Why would I do that? Why?" Yeah. This is what coming out of his mouth. He's like, "Why would I jeopardize millions of dollars, $1 million deals, risking the chance of people pulling out of these deals,
right? Just
to prove to you that I like women." Just doesn't make sense. Right. I think it was an accident. I really do.
And this is where it gets. This is the kind of stuff that I was talking about before when you were asking. You know, I'm up on trending topics and whatever. It's like, how much brain space do I want to give to some of that kind of stuff? You know,
I got you.
It's like, I mean, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I was mentioned to you before though. He grew up really poor. I do know that much, right? He grew up really, really poor. And I remember reading something where he said, we were so poor that our house got broken into one time. We ended up mugging the robber and robbing the robber.
Oh my goodness. You got to be. That's funny, man. That's funny.
That is funny. No, so the robber calls her. I want to report a robbery.
So I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I have a segment that I want to start doing, and it's called Rapid Fire.
Okay.
It's where I'm going to say some words, and I just want you to, word or phrase, and I want you to just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's a phrase, whether it's a word, and if you have a story behind why you're giving me that, I'll be happy to learn about it, all right?
All right. So are you going to bleep stuff if the word comes to me that is bleepable?
Never. So that's one thing about my podcast. I probably should have told you off the air or on the air. It doesn't even matter. I probably should have disclosed this. Most of my shows that I do when I stream, I'm usually edited, right? I'm usually streaming live on the radio. And I'm clean. I play clean music on the radio. I wanted to be able to bring this podcast to people and give them a different side of me. So unedited. If you wanted to have a drink right now or light a damn cigarette, I know you don't smoke cigarettes. It's okay. You could do it here. I just wanted to be unfiltered, right?
Got it.
So anything that you say is, trust me, I want it. Like, look at what my dad said. We going viral.
Yeah.
All right. Hip hop.
Oh, man. Get down.
Get down, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because I think all dancing is get down to an extent. But when I see hip hop dancing, it's like they're just doing whatever comes to them, what feels good, and if it makes them do something crazy, they just go ahead and do it. And I understand there's a skill to it, but in my opinion, almost anybody could dance hip hop like they wouldn't be able to do all those freezes and spins and head things. And
did you see I asked you about trending topic going back a little bit, but did you see the Olympics with the breakdancing, the chick that was breakdancing?
I did.
Is that what you mean by get down?
Well, no, I mean, like somebody my age, I could take, I like hip hop. I dance to hip hop. I mean, we do swing, not to all hip hop, but we do swing dancing to hip hop music.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, some of the way people my age dance, they can. It's not like soul music, but it's a little different,
Got you.
So
Latin music.
flavor,
Okay. Okay. All right. I like
flavor.
it.
I think of flavor because I mean, if you ever watched a really good artist who understands musicality put together a dance and how he or she is dancing to the different instruments within the song, it's nothing short of amazing. So,
Right.
I mean, the name salsa, I know it has a lot of different. There are a lot of different rumors how the word salsa came to be associated with a dance because it is a something you eat, but it's an appropriate name because there is a lot of dance flavor, a lot of musicality flavor within that dance.
No, I like that flavor, and Latin food is probably one of my favorite flavors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go.
Self-employed or work for someone else?
Self-employed.
I knew you were gonna say that. Definitely, you got to be your own boss, man.
Well, there's pros and cons to both. I mean, if you could find the right job where you're working for somebody else, it could be like one of the most rewarding experiences ever, and you can make a lot of money. I know people who've been in that category.
Right.
But if you like, and you could also be very creative if you find the right job. So I think that's probably the goal of most people is to find the job that gives them the most pleasure and allows them to earn a decent living. You know,
Right.
self-employed does give you the flexibility to do that creative stuff, but it comes with some risks in terms of, I mean, nobody's paying the bills. You got to make sure the bills are paid. You got to provide your own benefits and retirement and all that kind of stuff. So
Right. There's a post that I see all the time. It says, I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, so now I work for myself and I work 24 hours a day.
it's about right.
But it's about being happy, right?
That's right.
And loving what you do. So,
Yep.
social media.
Confusing.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
okay?
It
The
is.
reason I say it's confusing is because I watch I look at social media for entertainment, not for frozen. Am I frozen or just
That
you
was, I
frozen?
think that was your internet. It's okay. Let's
Uh,
start that again.
okay.
Social media, you said confusing, right?
Yes, I said confusing because I listen to social media and watch social media for entertainment. Um, but while I'm looking for entertainment, I often learn some things. You know what I mean? Like I'll see something that there's no way in my life experience could I have ever seen what I saw on that TikTok video or whatever it is.
For sure. For sure. It's crazy, man. I love
I
social
mean,
media, but
this,
it's
this, yeah, the stuff that people do, and I can't tell you how many hours I've spent just laughing. My wife will say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just
crying,
watching
full
this
out
video."
crying.
I'm laughing so hard, I'm crying. And so, but you got to mix. And why I say it's confusing is, on the other hand, there's all the negative stuff. There's a lot of dark stuff on there, and well, how does it all fit into the whole human scheme of things? Should we be protecting kids from it? I don't know. So I don't know what to do with it. I know what I do with it, but I don't know how it benefits society as a whole. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
confused about.
it's tough for me because I kind of envy the people who can take time off of social media or not have a Instagram or Facebook account. Sometimes I think, like, how do you even survive or keep up with the world? Like, I'm there, but then it's like, on the other hand, I need it for everything that I do.
Yeah.
As a business, I need it. I need it to, I get most of my DJ gigs off social media.
Right.
I'm finding people to DJ on my radio stations on social media. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't. Yeah, so I don't think social media. I think anybody has figured out, or at least I haven't come across someone. I'm sure there are people who have figured out exactly how to put social media in a user friendly way that is just a natural thing that you do. Like if you wanted to open an ice cream shop, there are certain steps that you take, and boom, you can have an ice cream shop that is very successful in a very short period of time. um, Social media kind of gives you the opportunity to be successful like an ice cream shop, but knowing exactly where to go and which platform and what it's looking for, and it's changing all the time. So
Yeah. Radio.
me.
Okay, okay. I literally thought this man was gonna say TTT Radio Network, but
No,
it's all good. It's all good. The founder of TTT Radio Network.
I think I was built for radio. I think if I could have had another career, I think radio and broadcasting could have been a career that I could have easily stepped into, both as an entertainer and as maybe a radio station owner, whatever.
I agree. I agree.
I think I could have that's and I would have enjoyed that because I enjoy helping people, I enjoy teaching people, I enjoy mastering the gadgetry of it.
Yep. Yep.
I love the gadgetry and understanding how this works, and I liked being a part of the changing technology of all of that stuff. And
And
yeah,
you taught me the basics of radio and programming stations, and I took it and ran with it, man, and we're where
yeah,
we are right now. So yeah,
yeah,
I totally
exactly.
agree with you.
Yeah.
70s or 80s?
I think 80s. Yeah, I
Okay.
think. I have a sweet spot in my heart for the 70s because the Vietnam era was winding down right around that time, and so there's a lot of good music that came out, and so when I hear 70s music, it reminds me of a certain time in my
Yeah,
life.
70s soul is probably very close to my favorite. It's like
Yeah,
it's super comfort. It's
right,
comforting for me. It's like people have comfort food. I would
right.
have to say 70s music is probably my comfort music.
Yeah. But I say the 80s because I think that's when I arrived at adulthood in true form, meaning, I really felt like I know who I am as a man, and then the world became clear to me in the 80s. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a whole lot of sense to me because I'm an 80s baby and I'm your son.
Well, yeah. You got that baby boy.
Okay, all right. I got two more here. Two more here.
All right.
Marijuana.
Woo. Helpful.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Helpful. Helpful. Yeah. I think I don't know why the word helpful comes in, but I think that the people who are preventing it being more legalized need to get with it and start acting like they really want to help people, you know, feel better, be better. If you can approve alcohol, you know what I mean? If you can and you can still have tobacco marketed to people, those things do
You preaching to the choir right now.
far more damage than, marijuana. I mean, I understand that the whole thing behind marijuana is that, well,
Psychoactive
it'll
part.
lead to something else. But if they legalize it just across the board, it would certainly. First of all, it would rebuild a lot of lives because a lot of the people who had past histories of dealing with this stuff and got arrested and have things on their record, those would all be expunged and people could go on with their lives, and it would actually help the economy because
Super,
those you
super
know
helpful in multiple situations.
right, right.
And the
And there are a
last
lot
one,
there are a lot of people who self-medicate using alcohol. So pick your poison, self-medication with alcohol or just go, smoke a blunt, I mean.
I'm going to go ahead and say that alcohol is probably more of a gateway drug than marijuana. That's just my opinion, though. But hey, who am I? I'm just a little old DJ.
Yeah. Well, there are probably a lot of people who go to the alcohol because, it seems it's
It's
safe
legal.
in the sense that it's legal.
It was legal. Well, I mean, it's legal here. I'm in Connecticut, but you know, um, anyway.
Yeah.
The last one I got for you. Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
You team iPhone. Let's go. No green messages. All blue messages.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing though. I'm not opposed to Android. Um, I think if it wasn't because of my wife, I would have probably been an Android user for seriously. I only got the iPhone because she bought an iPhone and she was complaining about how um, I couldn't help her with her phone, and it would be good if we had the same phone. And she just kept after me. I said, "All right, the next phone I get will be an iPhone." And so I got an iPhone, and I kind of liked it because it was simplistic. But I liked the Android because I liked getting into it and tinkering with it, which is where the iPhone comes in. I mean, maybe the newer iPhones, they're less like that, but the
Right.
older Samsung type phones, I mean, you could get in there. It was like a little computer. You could do all kinds of stuff in there.
Right. No, super customizable. That's one thing. I was Android for so long, and then I converted over to iPhone myself. And to be able to customize the Android and for many years, put in expandable storage was
Yes.
huge, because
That
with
kind of stuff.
iPhones, you have to buy the phone with however many gigs you want. With Android, you could just put a SD card in there and
Right.
have a couple hundred gigs.
Right.
So,
But I will say though, the user experience are almost identical. In some ways, the Android is smoother experience than the iPhone.
they are all copying each other. They're taking stuff
Yeah.
and
Because I was in
copying
the
each
store
other.
the other day and they had iPhones and they had Androids, and I was at the Android counter and I'm swiping around. Look, I'm thinking, man, this is nice.
I would say that iPhone is super dumbed down.
Yeah.
Like, it's straightforward. It's easier to navigate. Not as many options to do things.
One button.
Right, exactly. And they're giving you the same phone every single time
Yeah.
when it comes out.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yo, that's my time, man. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me.
Hey, this was fun. This was fun. Like I said, I enjoyed the gadgetry of it, and I know you're working very hard to try to make everything nice and smooth and seamless. And this was good.
Thank you for being so patient with me with this episode. They have no idea what we went through to get this episode going. So I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate you.
Well, you should save some of those outtakes. Some of those frozen moments.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll look back and see what we got, if we could do anything. But yeah, man, anytime you got something going on or you want to just come hang out, you're more than welcome to come here and get it off your chest. I know you're into podcasting and you got a lot of great ideas. You should get some of those podcasting things going, and we can launch them and promote them right here, man. This is your
Sounds
platform.
good. I definitely will be doing that. I definitely want to do that, and I'll be doing that soon.
All right, man. I'm DJ DNA. This is the DJ DNA podcast. I almost forgot what it was called. This is the DJ DNA podcast. And until next time, peace.
Live in the mix.
I pushed the wrong button. Let's get out of here.